we're making a reasonable case in a culture that's more and more being given over to imagination. Howdy, folks. Thanks for tuning in to The Virtue Signal. I'm Alfonso Rachel with my buddy Bill Whittle. Man, we were just saying backstage a little while ago, Bill, man, there's a lot of cray-cray to address out there. And I tell you what, man, I don't even know where to start. So I tell you what, man, this is what I'm going to do. I just picked some stuff, man, and I just dropped some stuff in my little Bronze Serpent Media mug here. Product placement.
Oh, joy.
So I'm just going to go ahead and, jiggle this thing around and see what we can come up with, man. Yeah.
Pandora's box of surprises.
Yeah. Or fortune cookie. Can we still say fortune cookie? Let me see. What do we got here? I think you guys talked about this earlier, but the culture is still talking about it. It's one of those things that just hasn't swam away with the tide. The Little Mermaid, man. Little Mermaid. Let's do it. Let's let's go Disney. Let's get on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride and talk about Little Mermaid. There's a lot of places to go with this, man. And the latest development that I've seen is that China, and you know how they love American movies, but they especially, it's like, look, you guys can screw yourselves up with those movies that you guys are doing, but you ain't doing that over here. But we know the story of how China is a big deep pockets for the Hollywood machine. They've turned Ariel back to being white, and it's like, hey, that's what matter of fact, as ethnocentric as the Chinese are, and I don't like using the term ethnocentric because it's a misappropriated word, but however, it's like they didn't even decide to make Ariel Chinese looking. They's like, no, we want her to be white. The period. And
does that show up in the poster, or did they reshoot the movie for them?
I think they remade a trailer or something like that. Did some algorithms. It's basically it's the same girl. It is the girl that they cast. But from what I can tell, all they did was they altered her complexion. They didn't change her features or anything like that. Altered her complexion, eye color, and basically made her a ginger. I'm glad to see gingers getting some respect. Right. So at any rate, long story short, for me, let me go ahead and start off by saying, I don't care. She's a mythological creature, right? I don't care what color you make her. It's the objective that they have in doing this. And I'll talk a little bit about this more in a minute. But if you want to, remind folks of, the issue to take with what they're trying to do with all these recasting, gender recasting, cultural or national recasting, all that sort of stuff. What's the takeaway from this that maybe put people in the right perspective,
Well, I'll tell you, Zoe, I really, really wrestled with this harder than just about anything I've had to deal with in a long, long time. I am not a fan of this move. And concurrently with remaking The Little Mermaid, they also remade Pinocchio, which was so appalling. It didn't even show up in theaters. Tom Hanks just gone. It's immediately on the bottom of the streaming list at Disney Plus or whatever. But in Pinocchio, the good fairy is now a bald black woman, dark-skinned bald black woman. So, yes, they're both mythological creatures, and yes, there are. You can't very well say, well, that's not what fairy godmothers look like, or the good fairy, or whatever the case may be. But nevertheless, doing that is a jab in the eye. It's an intentional jab in the eye. And that's the part that I object to. I don't have, I could probably reduce all my angst about this because I want to be on the right side on this, Sure. I want to be on the morally right side of this. Is this just genuinely like, I don't know, a black person's taking over a white person's role? I don't see that it is. Little Mermaid is a story that goes back to Hans Christian Andersen, Denmark, right? Copenhagen. This is northern European stuff. And when you make this kind of introduction, and I might add, by the way, this is pointed out by some commentators, and this may not seem like a big point, but it's actually a very interesting point, that in the trailer, this mermaid, this new mermaid, swims through water that's very murky and very dark. I find that to be an astonishing choice, that this underwater magical kingdom is dark and murky. It's got nothing to do with the skin color of the person they cast as the mermaid. It's got to do with the just the overall tone of the people making this stuff. This kind of thing, and the fairy princess. You'd think I'd know what the name of that creature was, who when you wish upon a star, right? But when you cast a bald black woman, you are teeing up something for a fight. And there's an argument going around in the pop culture circles now that say that this is, in fact, the way that they market the movies. It's called fanbaiting. They put out something that is very provocative. They wait for the big social outrage, and then they use that to ride publicity for the movie, and of course, parenthetically, to get all of the white supremacists and the racism into the narrative, which they're running a little short on before. So if you had to ask me why they do it, I think they do it to provoke that response. I think they do it because their entire case is predicated on white suppression, white supremacy, all of these racist things. They can't find enough examples in the real world. They have to manufacture them, They have to go out and manufacture them. Virtually all of the cases where black students have reported that they'd been harassed or, called names, turned out they did it themselves, right? The Jussie Smollett syndrome. And so what this does is it gives them a chance to say, oh, see, you are such terrible racists, because if you weren't, you wouldn't object to this. But I don't see it that way. I see it as deliberate provocation. When they remade Pinocchio, and I think this is the point, when they remade Pinocchio, the live action version, they got Tom Hanks into the kind of makeup that made him look exactly like Geppetto in the animated series. The CG Pinocchio in the live action one, the one that just came and left, looked exactly like Pinocchio in the animated movie. And everything else looked exactly like it did in the animated movie, except for this. Now, if they had completely remastered the whole thing, redone the whole thing, had a universally, multiracial cast, it would still be a violation of the fairy tale. And after all the talk about this cultural appropriation, because you find some white person, is wearing cornrows or something, this is, I don't even know what to call this other than vandalism, and vandalism designed to provoke a reaction. And I have to tell you, man, I really, 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 really wrestled with this on this one and tried to figure out, is this me just being a racist about this? How do I know that the fairy godmother's not a bald black woman? And you know how I figured it out? It's because there are no bald women. You know what I mean? That choice, right? That choice was so indicative of the poke in the eye.
No bald women. Are you begging for Will Smith to come up and slap one of us?
I'm ready.
Sorry, man. I just had to,
If it had been Halle Berry, it still would have been. Yeah, it still would have been, in my opinion, wrong. I'm very curious to get your take on that.
Well, the fan baiting things, man. I'm kind of wondering about that, because the Hollywood movies are supposed to be tanking, man. People ain't watching the award shows anymore. It's
nobody cares.
Where's the money in this? Unless it is, like a social agenda, some sort of
social engineering.
Something that they want to institutionalize, or something that they want instituted that the public has to live under. I think that means more to them than even the money and how they're going to control people the way that they think. Like I said, with Ariel being black, animals and humans being this hybrid is not something that's exclusive to white culture. The Egyptian have their animal-headed and human hybrids, and
right?
It's a pretty universal thing. But like you said, and I agree, it's the narrative, it's the objective that they're doing with this. They're gaslighting people. At the end of the day, Bill, because I see a lot of people and Republican voters, are so concerned that the Democrats are trying to destroy white people or anything. It's like, no. You have these people thinking that that's what they're trying to do. No, actually what they're trying to do is to get white people to resent black people. That's what this is all. That's what the Democrats have always been. They want white people to resent black people.
It's fascinating. And gays and trans and all the rest of the stuff they're ramming down our throats.
Absolutely. Well, actually, as far as no, those are their allies. They are actually allied with them. Black people are a unique. Black people with the Democrat Party is a picture of the Israelites with the Egyptians. Remember,
you can't have the Democrat Party without black.
Absolutely.
Without black people. Remember, you're right.
Remember, the Pharaoh, he wasn't, the Egyptians, the Hebrews as slaves, even as slaves, they became very powerful. And Pharaoh was okay with that. He didn't want to destroy them. He was worried about them leaving. And the Democrats are the same way with black folks. They need black people more than anybody else to control the narrative.
I see where you're going with this now.
Yes.
This is designed to make conservative Americans who were not racist, are not racist, and perfectly willing to accept all of this stuff and have been. They're pushing them to the point where they're now so provoked and agitated.
Yes.
Yeah, there may be something to that. Let me just add one thing about China and the audience for the movies and stuff. When people say, "Why is Disney destroying itself?" It's because it's like they're driving themselves. They're not making any money. Disney has to make movies for two people, right? As long as two people, individual people, like the movie, then they're golden. One of them is the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, and the other one is the chief executive of BlackRock. BlackRock is it's an international capital company with $10 trillion in assets, and they are the major funder of Disney, and the rest of their money comes from China, so they're not losing money. And here's something that needs to be said about these people. These are the people that are going to accuse Republicans and conservatives of being racist because they have a problem with this traditionally white character being race swapped. But when you look at the movies that Hollywood has made and sent to China, you find that when they sent any of the Star Wars, the most recent Star Wars remakes, Finn, the black character, is not on the poster. He's on the poster in the one for the West, but in the one for China, he's just gone. The Black Panther movie poster in the West, it's the actor, and in the version for China, it's a full face mask. And this is because the Chinese people or the Chinese government or both or whatever they're not only not tolerating black characters, forget in any traditional roles, they just don't want to see them. And these are the people that Walt Disney Company has taken a knee to. These are the people that the Democrats are selling their product to. They're trying to accuse us of racism, and they're selling it to Chinese audiences that are airbrushing the black people out of the posters. And these people have the nerve and the audacity to accuse us of being racist because they are poking us in the eye by changing these fundamental mythologies and stories. Look, you mentioned the Egyptians. I don't know. I just don't know. But if there were African legends about water nymphs, and I have to imagine that there must be because every culture has them, right? Then why don't you make a movie about that, right? And why don't you make a movie about that and make it good so that it sells? Because if you make it good, people will go. White people will go to see it. But this is the thing about these people. They don't have the talent. They don't have the experience to write their own stuff. So what they do is they take existing, beloved franchises like Little Mermaid and Pinocchio and Star Wars and Star Trek and all the rest of it, and they inject their viral DNA into the core of this thing and then send it out into the pop culture. And either it converts the pop culture or it provokes an immune response, in which case they have something to complain about when otherwise they wouldn't.
I tell you, and you're absolutely right. But there is a problem with being able to make your own. Like say, for instance, hey, I'm a content creator. I'd love to be able to make feature-length movies, but folks might have noticed that, I'm shadow banned. It has become legal for places like YouTube to keep me from making the content that I want to do and be able to grow the support to be able to do what I want to do. This hasn't changed about the Democrat Party. And they do this to blacks and they do this to Republicans. You know, Republicans and blacks really have a history together that's still reflected to today. It's really unfortunate they don't see eye to eye anymore when they're going through the same problems, right? But, you know, here's the thing. Hollywood, I think people are missing, and now it almost looks like selective outrage, Bill, when you had Hollywood that has had a history of race swapping. I mean, Indians was played by white folks.
Yep.
Black folks was played by white folks in black folks, in blackface. Kwai Kane was played by a white man. That rolls for Bruce Lee, right?
John Wayne played Genghis Khan.
Right, you know, Charleston Heston played Moses, you know, all that sort of. The Lone Ranger is arguably actually based on Bass Reeves, who was a black marshal. You know, so
I did not know that.
This race swapping has been done for a long time. And now all of a sudden it's a problem. And why was it done back then? Why? Because of a race narrative and because of a political agenda. This is how Hollywood said that, well, this is a representation of America. This is how we're supposed to see America. America's white. Right? So that thing's been done for like a long time. And, you know, people would say that, well, why don't black people just make their own movies? Well, because we know that it was the law to keep black people from having things. It was the law. Now, it's not that way anymore, but it depends on how you look at it. Because like I said, I'm trying to do my creativity too. And it's the law. YouTube's got community standards and stuff like that keeps me from doing what it is that I'd like to be able to do.
And us too.
Exactly. You know, like I said, I'm not saying that, hey, they're picking up. Well, actually, they are picking me because they claim to be for the black man. Black lives matter. And the little guy matters. Well, I'm that black little guy. Why are you guys messing with me? You know,
they're not after you because you're black. So they're after you because you're on the side of God and reason, and you're good at it, and that's why you're being targeted.
Sure, but
right? and because you are being especially targeted because of how effective you are.
Well, and I appreciate that, man. But like I said, it's the hypocrisy that comes out because they claim Black Lives Matter. So again, you know, let's throw it back in their faces. Like, really, Black Lives Matter. Why are you suppressing my work? And this is across all the liberal gatekeepers. But, you know, like I said, Bill, it's not an issue. And I've warned about this for a long time, folks. I've warned about this for a long time of how Democrats are going to use these narratives against us. Don't fall into their trap. Don't allow yourselves to be gaslit. This is what they're expecting people to do. This stuff works like a charm. They're able to read Republicans very well. They're master manipulators and master deceivers. And, you know, just be careful not to fall into their trap. Don't get gaslit by it. Make it very clear, you know, as Bill has made it very clear. It's like, look, you can't just switch around narratives. If we were to do this, you know, you would have a problem if we took Shaft and switched him out for I don't know, Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt.
Yeah. You know,
Brad Pitt is Shaft. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And we'll have Anthony Hopkins play Martin Luther King.
There you go. See how that doesn't work, folks? That ain't nothing to do with racism. Nothing to do with it. It's just not historically accurate. It's not in the spirit of the person who created, you know, if it's a work of fiction, it's not in the spirit of what they made it for. Man, this
is the point, though. Let me just jump in here, okay? Mm-hmm. This is the point. You are talking about remakes, right? You are talking about redoing something that was successful and loved, and you can't change something unless there was something there in the beginning anyway, right? I could make a movie about a white policeman in black neighborhoods and call it Shift and star Brad Pitt, right? And that would not be a problem, right? Because the reason that casting Brad Pitt as Shaft just to turn the tables on them, the reason that's a problem is because Shaft already exists. He already exists. We know what John Shaft is, right? He's a bad.
Shut your mouth.
All right. So that's why, look, if this movie had never been made before, no one would be complaining about a Black Mermaid because it would be a brand new story. You can make whatever brand new story you want to. All of this criticism comes from having the fact that they are taking not only pre-existing products, but well-beloved pre-existing products and changing them specifically to get a reaction out of people. And And if this wasn't called The Little Mermaid, if it was called The Mermaid and didn't have all of the characters that people love from the animation store, you wouldn't be hearing about this at all.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's what we got to, hold fast to, folks. But remember, we're talking logic and reason here. We're making a reasonable case in a culture that's more and more being given over to imagination. And that's an area that we have to be able to step into the theater of this culture war with. Capture their imaginations, convey the truth to them. So if you support places like BillWhittle.com, where we do want to be able to do these creative narratives and not just, this very eloquently spoken, I think, and excellent logic and reason that we put, but be able to put it in vehicles that we can connect with them with, then, you'd be spending your money quite wisely. So make sure you boogie on over to BillWhittle.com and make sure you guys share these videos. Work that like button and share button until it smokes. Can you dig it? See what I did there with that shaft thing? All right, y'all.
I can, man.
Blessings, y'all. Thanks for tuning into Virtue Signal. We'll see you next time.